Captain Sarah Martinez looked at her watch for the third time in 10 minutes. The monthly check-in call from New Kepler Colony was already 2 hours late. She sat in the communications center on Luna Station, surrounded by screens and blinking, lights that normally buzzed with activity from dozens of human colonies. "Still nothing from New Kepler?" asked Lieutenant James Park, walking up behind her with 2 cups of coffee. Sarah took the cup and shook her head. Dead silence, not even a carrier signal. She pressed a button on her console. "New Kepler Colony, this is Luna Control. Please respond immediately. We show you as overdue for your monthly report." Static filled the speakers. The same empty static they had been hearing for 2 hours. New Kepler was humanity's pride and joy. The first successful colony outside the solar system, built on a beautiful world with blue skies and green forests. 2.3 million humans called it home. They grew food, built cities, raised children, and proved that humanity could thrive among the stars. "Maybe it's just equipment failure," James said, but his voice didn't sound convinced. Sarah stood up and walked to the main screen showing a map of human space. New Kepler was a bright blue dot on the edge of everything they had built. Beyond it lay the vast unknown of the galaxy, filled with alien races that humans had barely begun to meet. "Get Admiral Chen on the line," Sarah said. "Priority 1. Within minutes, Admiral Elizabeth Chen appeared on the main screen. She was 50 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen humanity grow from a single world to a dozen colonies. Behind her, the Earth hung like a blue marble in space. "What's the situation, Captain?" Admiral Chen asked. "New Kepler missed their monthly check-in, Admiral. No response to any of our calls. It's been over 3 hours now." Admiral Chen's face grew serious. "Equipment failure?" "That's what we hoped. But their backup systems should have kicked in by now. Even if their main array failed, they have 3 separate backup communication systems." The Admiral was quiet for a moment. "Send a scout ship, fast as possible." "Already prepared one, Admiral. The Hermes is ready to jump." "Good. And Captain, tell them to be very careful." The Hermes reached New Kepler in 18 hours. It was a small, fast ship designed for reconnaissance. Captain Tom Wilson had made this run dozens of times before, carrying supplies and messages to the colony. But this time was different. "Luna Control. This is Hermes." Captain Wilson's voice crackled over the long-distance communication array. His voice was shaking. "You need to see this." The video feed came through, grainy and broken, but clear enough to see the truth. New Kepler was gone. Not just damaged or attacked, completely gone. The beautiful blue and green world was now, blackened rock. The surface glowed with heat. Everything melted and burned. "My God," Sarah whispered, staring at the screen. "What happened to them?" "Orbital bombardment," Captain Wilson reported. "The entire surface has been glassed. Nothing could have survived this. The cities, the farms, the forests, everything is just gone." Admiral Chen leaned forward in her chair on Earth. "Any sign of the attacking force?" "Negative. But Admiral, I'm picking up residual energy signatures. Plasma weapons, high intensity. And Admiral, the pattern matches Korthak's technology." A cold silence filled the communication center. Everyone knew about the Korthak's hegemony. They were a reptilian race that controlled 12 star systems. They were aggressive, territorial, and had made it clear they didn't like humans expanding into space. "Are you certain about those energy signatures?" Admiral Chen asked. "Yes, Admiral. I've seen Korthak's plasma weapons before. This is their work." "Admiral." Chen closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her face was like stone. "Captain Wilson, search for survivors. Any escape pods, any shelters, anything." For the next 6 hours, the Hermes searched the dead world. They found the burned remains of cities that had housed hundreds of thousands. They found melted farms, where children had played. They found nothing alive, but they did find one thing. "Admiral, I found the colony's emergency broadcast system. It recorded their final transmission. The audio was scratchy and filled with static, but the words were, 'Clear enough. This is New Kepler Control to any receiving station. We have unknown vessels decloaking in our system. Large ships not responding to our hails. Wait, they're charging weapons. Oh God, they're charging weapons. This is New Kepler Control. We are under attack. Repeat, We are under attack by unknown. The transmission cut off. Admiral Chen stared at the screen for a long time after the audio stopped. Around her, the bridge of the Earth Defense Station was completely quiet. Admiral? Sarah's voice came over the communication link from Luna Station. Your orders? Recall all our ships, Admiral Chen said slowly. Every single vessel. Bring them home. Admiral, if we pull back our patrol ships, the other colonies will be defenseless. The other colonies are already defenseless against this kind of attack, Admiral Chen replied. If the Korthax can destroy New Kepler without warning, they can A. Destroy any of our worlds. We need a different approach. Over the next 12 hours, news of New Kepler's destruction spread throughout human space. On Earth, people gathered in the streets, watching news reports in shocked silence. On Mars, the colonial government called an emergency session. On every human world and station, the same question was being asked. What now? In the government buildings of Earth, emergency meetings ran through the night. President Johnson called. Together, military leaders, industrial chiefs, and colonial representatives. 2.3 million people, the president said to the assembled group. Men, women, children, wiped out without warning, without provocation. General Morrison, head of Earth's military forces, spread out tactical displays on the table. The Korthax have about 40,000 ships. Their technology is roughly equal to ours. They hit New Kepler with overwhelming force, probably their entire fleet. So they used everything they had to make a point, said Director Walsh from Colonial Affairs. They wanted to scare us away from expanding further. Did they send any demands? Any ultimatums? President Johnson asked. Nothing, Admiral Chen replied from her position in orbit. They just attacked. No warning, no demands, no explanation. The president looked around the table at the grim faces. They killed our people to send us a message. What message do we send back? General Morrison leaned forward. Mr. President, with respect, they have 40,000 ships. We have maybe 8,000 combat vessels spread across all our colonies. That we know about, said a voice from the corner. Everyone turned to look at Director Hayes from Industrial Development. He was an older man who rarely spoke in these meetings. What do you mean? The president asked. Director Hayes walked to the tactical display and entered a code. The screen changed, showing new information that made everyone in the room go silent. Mr. President, the Korthax aren't the only ones who have been preparing for war. The screen showed shipyard after shipyard hidden throughout the solar system, production facilities on the dark side of the moon, automated factories in the asteroid belt, underground construction bays on Mars that were bigger than cities. How many? President Johnson asked quietly. Director Hayes smiled grimly. 700,000 ships, Mr. President. And they're all armed and ready for war. Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication link from orbit. Mr. President, I request permission to mobilize the fleet. All of it? All of it, sir. The Korthax wanted to send us a message. I think it's time we sent one back. President Johnson looked around the room one more time. Every face showed the same determination. Admiral Chen, you have permission to mobilize the entire fleet. Find the Korthax. Make them pay for what they did to New Kepler. Yes, Mr. President. We'll make them pay. The news of New Kepler's destruction spread across Earth like wildfire. In New York, London, Tokyo, and every major city, crowds gathered around public screens. The images of the dead world played over and over, the blackened surface where millions had lived and worked just days before. Maria Santos stood in Times Square, watching the giant screen with thousands of other people. She had a daughter living on New Kepler. Had, past tense. The thought made her stomach turn. They're all gone, whispered the man standing next to her. Everyone we knew there. Maria nodded, unable to speak. Around them, the crowd was completely silent except for the sound of people crying. On the screen, President Johnson appeared. He looked older than he had just yesterday. My fellow humans, the president began. 24 hours ago, the colony of New Kepler was attacked without warning by ships belonging to the Korthax hegemony. 2.3 million of our people were killed. Men, women, and children who had done nothing except try to build new lives among the stars. The crowd in Times Square stirred. Someone shouted something angry, but most people just listened. The attack was not preceded by any demands or warnings. The Korthax simply arrived and destroyed everything. This was not an act of war. It was murder on a massive scale. President Johnson paused, looking directly into the camera. The Korthax believed. They were sending us a message. They thought that by destroying one of our colonies, they would frighten us into retreating back to Earth. They believed we were weak because we tried to solve problems with words before weapons. Maria felt anger building in her chest. Her daughter, Sarah, had been a teacher on New Kepler. She had moved there to help build schools for the colony's children. They were wrong, President Johnson continued. Humanity has faced extinction before. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have ended other species. We survived because we learned to fight when fighting was necessary. The Iwai Kai, President's voice grew harder. The Korthax mistook our desire for peace as inability to make war. They confused our diplomacy with weakness. Today, they will learn the difference. In the Unified Earth Assembly Building, representatives from every nation sat in emergency session. The hall was packed, with delegates standing in the aisles. Everyone wanted to be part of this moment. The chair recognizes the representative. From Australia, announced the speaker. Margaret Kim stood up, her face grim. My government has already mobilized our entire space fleet. Every ship, every crew, they are at your disposal, Mr. President. The chair recognizes the representative. From Brazil, our industrial complexes are shifting to war production as of this moment, said Carlos Mendez. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource we have. One by one, every nation on Earth pledged everything they had. Ships, soldiers, factories, and resources. In 6 hours, humanity had unified for war in a way they had never unified for peace. But the most important meeting was happening in a secure room deep beneath Geneva. Admiral Chen sat at a table with the heads of every major military, an intelligence organization on Earth. What do we know about the Korthax? Asked General Morrison. Dr. Sarah Kim, head of alien intelligence, activated a holographic display. A reptilian figure appeared, tall and covered in scales with yellow eyes and sharp teeth. The Korthax hegemony controls 12 star systems, she explained. Population roughly 8 billion across their worlds. They're aggressive, territorial, and have a military-focused society. Military capabilities? Admiral Chen asked. Approximately 40,000 combat vessels. Their technology is roughly equal to ours in most areas, slightly behind in others. They rely heavily on plasma weapons and energy shields. What about their ground forces? Extensive. They have conquered 6 other species over the past 500 years. They're experienced at invasion and occupation. General Morrison leaned back in his chair. They sound formidable. They are, Dr. Kim agreed. But there's something important about their psychology. They respect strength and despise weakness. To them, any species that doesn't respond to aggression with immediate violence is not worthy of respect. So the attack on New Kepler was a test, Admiral Chen said. Exactly. They expected us to retreat or negotiate. In their culture, that would prove we're weak and not worth their time. Admiral Chen smiled grimly. They're about to learn they miscalculated. Next speaker was Director Hayes from Industrial Development. He stood and activated another display, this one showing the hidden shipyards throughout the solar system. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand what humanity has really built. Over the past century, the display showed massive construction facilities hidden on the far side of the moon, automated factories scattered throughout the asteroid belt, underground complexes on Mars that extended for hundreds of miles. We've been preparing for this. Days since we first learned there were other intelligent species in the galaxy, Director Hayes explained, not because we wanted war, but because we knew it might become necessary. 700,000 ships, General Morrison said quietly. How did we build so many without anyone knowing? Automation and compartmentalization, Director Hayes replied. Most of the construction was done by robots and AI systems. Even the workers who built individual components didn't know they were building warships. Dr. Kim looked stunned. 700,000 ships against their 40,000. That's overwhelming. It's supposed to be, Admiral Chen said. Humanity learned something important during our own wars. If you have to fight, you fight with everything you have. You don't give your enemy a chance to recover and try again. Over the next 12 hours, the hidden fleet began to reveal itself. On the far side of the moon, massive doors opened in what looked like empty craters. Warships emerged, first dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. In the asteroid belt, automated factories that had been mining rocks suddenly revealed their true purpose. The mining ships they had been building were actually destroyers and cruisers. Mars, the ground opened like a flower, revealing underground bays that stretched for miles. Battle cruisers and dreadnoughts rose from the depths, their hulls gleaming under the red planet's sun. Captain Williams commanded a news ship documenting the fleet's emergence. He had covered wars and disasters for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this. "This is Captain Williams reporting from near Luna Station," he said into his camera. "What we're seeing here defies description. Ships are emerging from hiding places throughout the solar system. The Luna shipyards alone have released over 50,000 vessels." Behind him, massive ships moved through space in perfect formation. Each one was armed with weapons that could destroy cities. "The largest ships are called Terra-class dreadnoughts," Williams continued. "Each one is over 5 miles long and carries enough firepower to crack a planet. I'm told there are over 1,000 of them." On Earth, people watched the news reports with a mixture of awe and fear. They were proud that humanity had such power, but shocked that it had been hidden for so long. In the Korthax Empire, intelligence officers were having a very different reaction. Supreme Commander Vorthak stood in the command center of the Korthax, home world, watching the reports from human space with growing alarm. "How many ships did our scouts report the humans had?" he asked his intelligence chief. "Approximately 8,000 combat vessels, Supreme Commander." Vorthak pointed at the screen showing endless streams of human warships. "Does that look like 8,000 ships to you?" "No, Supreme Commander. Our latest count shows significantly more." "How much more?" The intelligence chief hesitated. "Early estimates suggest 700,000 combat vessels, Supreme Commander." Vorthak's scales changed color, a sign of extreme stress among his species. 700,000? That's impossible. No species maintains a fleet that large. "It appears the humans have been building in secret for decades, Supreme Commander." Vorthak stared at the screen for a long time. The attack on New Kepler was supposed to be simple. Destroy one weak human colony, send a message, and the humans would retreat back to their home system. Instead, they had awakened something terrible. "Supreme Commander," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a message from the human fleet." "Put it on screen." Admiral Chen appeared on the display. Her face was calm, but her eyes were filled with cold anger. "Supreme Commander Vorthak, I am Admiral Elizabeth Chen of the Human Defense Force. You ordered the destruction of New Kepler Colony. You killed 2.3 million innocent people without warning or provocation." Vorthak straightened in his chair. "Admiral, we were simply defending our territorial interests. Humans were expanding too aggressively into—" "I'm not interested in your excuses," Admiral Chen interrupted. "You taught us something important, Supreme Commander. You taught us that some species only understand strength." Behind the Admiral, the display showed the human fleet forming into battle groups, hundreds of thousands of ships moving with perfect coordination. "Today we're going to teach you what human strength looks like," Admiral Chen continued. "You wanted to send us a message. Now we're sending one back." The transmission ended. Supreme Commander Vorthak sat in silence for several minutes. Around him, his officers waited for orders. "Mobilize the entire fleet," he finally said. "Every ship, every crew." Admiral Elizabeth Chen stood on the bridge of the HMS Terra, the largest warship humanity had ever built. Through the massive viewing windows, she could see the human fleet assembling in space around Earth. 700,000 ships, each, one built in secret over decades of careful preparation. "Admiral, all fleet groups are reporting ready," said Commander Jackson, her second in command. Chen nodded, still watching the incredible sight outside. Ships as far as the eye could see, organized into perfect formations. Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and the massive Terra-class dreadnoughts that could destroy entire worlds. "How long has it been since New Kepler was attacked?" she asked. 72 hours, Admiral. 3 days. In just 3 days, humanity had revealed the largest military force in galactic history. Ships that had been hidden throughout the solar system for decades were now moving into attack formations. "Admiral Chen to all fleet commanders," she said into her communicator. "This is not just about revenge for New Kepler. This is about making sure no other human colony ever suffers the same fate." The responses came from across the fleet, thousands of captains and commanders, all saying the same thing. "Ready for your orders, Admiral." Chen walked to the tactical display at the center of the bridge. It showed the Korthax Empire, 12 star systems, 40,000 ships, and 8 billion reptilian beings who had just made the worst mistake in their species' history. "The Korthax thought we were weak because we tried to negotiate first," Chen said to her bridge crew. "They mistook our patience for inability to fight. Today, we show them what humanity is really capable of." Dr. Sarah Kim, the alien intelligence expert, stood at another console nearby. "Admiral, I've been studying Korthax military doctrine. They're used to fighting species that are roughly equal in strength. They've never faced anything like this." "Good," Chen replied. "Maybe they'll learn something." The fleet was organized into 7 massive battle groups, each one larger than most entire military forces. Battle Group Alpha alone had over 100,000 ships, including 50 of the massive Terra-class dreadnoughts. Captain Maria Rodriguez commanded the dreadnought HMS New Kepler, named for the destroyed colony. She had lost friends in the attack, people she had served with for years who had retired to the peaceful colony world. "All weapon systems green," reported her tactical officer. "Plasma cannons charged, missile tubes loaded, shield generators at maximum power." Rodriguez looked at the tactical display showing their target, the Korthax fortress world of Sector Prime. It was the strongest military position in the Korthax Empire, defended by their entire home fleet. "They chose to fight us with overwhelming force," Rodriguez said to her crew. "Now they get to see what overwhelming force really looks like." Throughout the fleet, similar conversations were happening on thousands of bridges. Humanity was going to war, and they were going to war with everything they had. The first battle group reached the edge of Korthax space 18 hours later. Commander Sarah Park led the advance force, 10,000 fast attack ships designed to probe enemy defenses. "Commander, we're detecting Korthax patrol ships," reported her sensor officer. 6 vessels moving to intercept." "Open a channel," Park ordered. The face of a Korthax commander appeared on her screen. The reptilian scales were showing stress colors. "Human vessel, you are entering Korthax territory without permission. Turn back immediately or face destruction." "This is Commander Park of the Human Defense Force," Park replied calmly. "You attacked our colony without warning. You killed millions of innocent people. We're here to return the favor." The Korthax commander's eyes narrowed. "You bring 10,000 ships against our empire? You are either very brave or very stupid." Park smiled. 10,000? This is just the advance guard." She gestured to her communications officer, who transmitted tactical data showing the full human fleet. 700,000 ships moving in perfect formation toward Korthax space. The Korthax commander's scales changed to pure white, the color of absolute terror among his species. "Impossible," he whispered. "No species has that many ships." "We do," Park replied. "And we built them all for one purpose, to make sure nobody ever attacks human civilians again." The transmission ended. Within minutes, the Korthax patrol ships were fleeing deeper into their territory, sending desperate messages to their high command. Back on the Korthax homeworld, Supreme Commander Vorthak was dealing with his own crisis. Reports were flooding in from across the Empire. Human ships were appearing at the edge of every Korthax system, not attacking yet, but clearly positioning for a massive assault. "How did they hide so many ships?" Vorthak asked his intelligence chief. "We don't know, Supreme Commander. Our spies reported that humans had maybe 8,000 combat vessels total. We never detected construction of this magnitude. Could our spies have been wrong?" "No, Supreme Commander. The humans really did have only 8,000 ships until a few days ago. These new vessels, they must have been hidden somewhere we never thought to look." Vorthak studied the tactical displays showing human forces surrounding his empire. Each battle group was larger than his entire military. "What do you know about human military history?" he asked. The intelligence chief activated a holographic display showing Earth. "Humans have been fighting wars for their entire recorded history, Supreme Commander. They've developed military technology and tactics over thousands of years of constant conflict. But they seemed so peaceful when we first encountered them. That's what we thought, but our analysis was incomplete. Humans practice something they call peace through strength. They prepare for war while hoping for peace. Vorthak watched the display showing human battle groups moving into position. And if peace fails, then they fight with everything they have, Supreme Commander. Human military doctrine is based on overwhelming force and total victory. Meaning what? Meaning they don't fight limited wars, Supreme Commander. When humans go to war, they commit everything until the enemy surrenders completely. Vorthak felt a chill run down his spine. The attack on New Kepler was supposed to be a simple demonstration of power. Instead, it had triggered something far worse than he had imagined. Supreme Commander, his communications officer reported. The human admiral, Chen, is requesting to speak with you. Put her through. Admiral Chen appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Vorthak could see the bridge of the massive human dreadnought. Human crew members moved with calm efficiency, preparing for battle. Supreme Commander, Chen said formally, I'm giving you one chance to avoid total war. What are your terms? Vorthak asked. Complete surrender of your military forces, dismantling of your empire, reparations for the people of New Kepler. Vorthak's scales flushed red with anger. Impossible. We will never surrender to inferior beings. Chen's expression didn't change. Then you've made your choice. Admiral, you may have more ships, but we have been fighting wars for 500 years. Our warriors are experienced and our technology is battle-tested. Supreme Commander, let me explain something about human warfare, Chen replied. We've been fighting wars for 5,000 years. Your entire species has the military experience that humans gain in a single century. She gestured to something off-screen, and the tactical display showed detailed scans of Vorthak's defenses. Know the location of every ship, every base, every weapon installation in your empire. We've been watching you for years, learning your tactics, studying your technology. Vorthak realized with growing horror that the humans had been preparing for this war long before New Kepler was attacked. This was never about territorial expansion, was it? He asked. No, Chen replied. This is about survival. You threatened humanity's future among the stars. You killed our people without provocation. Now you face the consequences. And if we fight? Chen's expression became cold as space itself. Then your empire ends today. Every military base destroyed, every warship captured or eliminated, every weapon turned to scrap metal. You would commit genocide? No, Chen said firmly. We're not like you. We don't kill civilians. But your military will cease to exist, and your government will be restructured under human oversight. Vorthak looked around his command center. His officers were watching the conversation with fear in their eyes. They all understood what was happening. Their empire was about to be destroyed by an enemy they had vastly underestimated. I need time to consider your offer, Vorthak said. You have 1 hour, Chen replied. After that, we begin our attack. The transmission ended, leaving Vorthak alone with his thoughts and the impossible choice. Surrender and lose everything, or fight and face certain destruction. He looked at the tactical displays one more time. 700,000 human ships surrounded his empire like a closing fist. Each battle group was perfectly positioned, waiting for the order to attack. No. Vorthak had awakened something they didn't understand. Humanity had spent centuries learning how to fight wars, and now they were about to demonstrate that knowledge on a galactic scale. Supreme Commander, his tactical officer reported, our entire fleet is in position. 40,000 ships ready for battle. Vorthak nodded slowly. And the humans? 700,000 ships, Supreme Commander. All weapons charged, all systems ready. The hour was up. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of HMS Terra, watching the tactical display that showed the entire Vorthak's empire. 7 battle groups surrounded the reptilian empire like a closing net, each one positioned perfectly for what was about to begin. Admiral, Supreme Commander Vorthak is refusing to surrender, reported Commander Jackson. Chen nodded calmly. She had expected this. The Korthax were a warrior species. They would rather die fighting than submit to what they saw as inferior beings. Very well, she said. Signal all battle groups. Operation Retribution is now active. Across the human fleet, captains received their orders. But this wasn't going to be a simple attack. Human strategists had spent decades studying warfare, and they understood something the Korthax didn't. Destroying an empire required more than just winning battles. Battle Group Alpha, you have Sector Prime, Chen announced. Battle Group Beta, take the Vorthax system. Battle Group Gamma, hit their industrial worlds. Each battle group had a specific target and a specific mission. The humans weren't just going to attack, they were going to systematically dismantle the Korthax Empire piece by piece. Captain Maria Rodriguez commanded HMS New Kepler as part of Battle Group Alpha. Their target was Sector Prime, the heavily fortified heart of the Korthax military. 8,000 Korthax ships defended the system, including their most powerful dreadnoughts. Captain, we're detecting massive Korthax formations, reported her tactical officer. They're positioning for a defensive battle. Rodriguez studied the display. The Korthax had formed their ships into a protective shell around their homeworld, exactly like human intelligence had predicted they would. They're fighting the last war, she said to her bridge crew. They think this is going to be like their previous conquests, fleets meeting in open space, slugging it out until one side breaks. But it's not? Asked her executive officer. No. This is total war, human style. Battle Group Alpha had over 100,000 ships. They approached Sector Prime not in a single massive formation, but in dozens of smaller groups that attacked. From every direction at once, the Korthax had never faced anything like it. Their defensive formation was designed to stop attacks from one direction, maybe two, but the humans were coming from everywhere. Enemy ships decloaking on our port flank, shouted a Korthax commander. Another group approaching from above. Multiple contacts on our starboard side. Supreme Commander Vorthak watched the battle from his command center, trying to understand what was happening. His carefully positioned defensive fleet was being torn apart by human tactics he had never seen before. How are they coordinating so many ships? He asked his tactical officer. Unknown, Supreme Commander. They're using some kind of artificial intelligence system to control their formations. On HMS New Kepler, Rodriguez watched her tactical display with satisfaction. The human ships moved like a school of fish, each one responding instantly to changes in the battle. Advanced AI systems coordinated their attacks with precision no organic mind could match. Target the Korthax command ships, she ordered. Cut off their communications. Human weapons were roughly equal to Korthax technology, but the humans had two major advantages. First, they had overwhelming numbers. Second, they fought smarter. While the Korthax tried to engage in traditional space battles, the humans used hit-and-run tactics. Small groups of fast ships would attack, destroy their targets, and disappear before the Korthax could respond effectively. This is impossible, Vorthak shouted, watching his fleet being systematically destroyed. They have too many ships. But it wasn't just the numbers. The humans fought with a level of coordination and tactical sophistication that the Korthax had never encountered. Every move was calculated, every attack planned for maximum effect. The battle for Sector Prime lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Korthax defensive fleet had been completely destroyed. 8,000 ships reduced to debris floating in space, but the humans had done something unexpected. Instead of attacking the planet itself, they had disabled the orbital defense platforms and then stopped. This is Admiral Chen to the people of Sector Prime, came the broadcast to the planet below. Your military has been defeated, but we are not here to harm civilians. You have 24 hours to evacuate all military personnel from the planet. After that, we will occupy your world. Similar battles were happening across the Korthax Empire, but each one followed the same pattern. Devastating military defeat followed by offers of mercy to civilians. On the industrial world of Kornak 7th, Battle Group Gamma had destroyed the planet's military forces in 4 hours. But instead of bombing the factories, they captured them intact. Commander Lisa Park, leading the occupation force, stood in the main factory complex that had been producing Korthax warships just hours before. This facility will now produce medical supplies and food for refugee relocation, she announced to the captured Korthax workers. Anyone who cooperates will be treated well. Anyone who resists will be arrested but not harmed. The Korthax workers stared at her in confusion. They had expected the humans to kill them or enslave them, like the Korthax had done to other species. Instead, the humans were offering them jobs. "I don't understand," said one of the Korthax supervisors. "You conquered us. Why aren't you acting like conquerors?" Commander Park smiled sadly. "Because we're not like you. We don't enjoy causing suffering." Back in the main command center, Admiral Chen was coordinating the largest military operation in human history. Battle groups were engaging Korthax forces across 12 star systems simultaneously. "Admiral Battle Group Delta reports success at the Nexus shipyards," announced Commander Jackson. "Enemy fleet destroyed, facilities captured intact. Battle. Group Epsilon has secured the Kortak mining worlds. Minimal resistance. Battle Group Gamma reports Kornak 7 under full human control. One by one, the Korthax Empire was falling apart. But Admiral Chen wasn't celebrating. She understood that winning the war was only the first step. "Commander, what's our casualty report?" she asked. "Surprisingly light, Admiral. We've lost about 300 ships total across all battle groups. The Korthax have lost their entire military." Chen nodded grimly. The overwhelming numbers had made the difference. When you brought 700,000 ships against 40,000, the outcome was never really in doubt. "Admiral," her communications officer reported. "We're receiving a transmission from Supreme Commander Vorthak." "Put him through." Vorthak appeared on the main screen. His command center was damaged, with sparks flying from broken equipment. His scales showed the pale color of defeat. "Admiral Chen," he said quietly, I wish to discuss terms." "The terms haven't changed," Chen replied. "Complete surrender, dismantling of your military, reparations for New Kepler. And if we agree, your people live, your civilians are protected. Your species continues, but under human oversight until you prove you can coexist peacefully with others." Vorthak looked around his ruined command center. Reports were coming in from across his empire. Every military base destroyed. Every fleet eliminated. Every fortified world captured. "We never imagined," he said slowly. "We thought humans were weak because you talked before fighting." "We talk first because we understand the cost of war," Chen replied. "But when talking fails, we fight with everything we have. Your species is terrifying. Only when we need to be." Vorthak closed his eyes. "I surrender. The Korthax Empire surrenders unconditionally. But Admiral Chen had one more lesson to teach. Supreme Commander, this war isn't over yet." "What do you mean?" "We've surrendered. You've surrendered your government and military. But there are other species watching this conflict. They need to see what happens when someone attacks humanity." Chen activated a new display showing the rest of the galaxy. Dozens of alien species had been monitoring the human Korthax war, trying to understand what kind of threat humanity represented. "We're going to rebuild your empire as a democracy," Chen continued. "Your people will choose their own leaders, but those leaders will answer to a human oversight council. Your former military will be retrained as a police force. Your weapons factories will produce tools and medical equipment. And if we resist, then you'll learn that this demonstration was actually us being gentle. Across the Korthax Empire, human forces were implementing a plan that had been decades in the making. The humans didn't just destroy their enemies, they rebuilt them as allies. On Sector Prime, human engineers were already working with Korthax civilians to repair the damage from the battle. Food distribution centers were being established. Medical teams were treating wounded Korthax soldiers alongside human casualties. Commander Sarah Kim, the alien intelligence expert, walked through the streets of the Korthax capital city. Reptilian civilians watched her nervously, expecting harsh treatment. "We're here to help," she told them through a translator. "Your government made a terrible mistake, but you didn't. We don't punish civilians for the crimes of their leaders." An elderly Korthax approached her, his scales showing confusion colors. "Why?" he asked. "We are your enemies." "No," Kim replied gently. "Your leaders were our enemies. You're just people trying to live your lives same as us." 1 year after the fall of the Korthax Empire, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez walked through the rebuilt streets of Sector City. The former capital of the Korthax Empire looked completely different now. Where once there had been military monuments and weapons factories, now there were schools, hospitals, and parks where Korthax children played. Ambassador Rodriguez called out Dr. Korthek, the newly elected mayor of the city. He was a middle-aged Korthax who had been a university professor before the war. "How are the reconstruction efforts proceeding?" Elena smiled and switched to speaking Korthax, a language she had learned over the past year. "Very well, Dr. Korthek. The new medical center will be completed next month, and the agricultural college is already accepting students." Dr. Korthek's scales showed pleased colors. "It's hard to believe how much has changed. A year ago, this city was all about building weapons and training soldiers. Now our young people are studying medicine and engineering. How do your people feel about the changes?" Elena asked. At first there was resistance. Many Korthax believed that strength only came from military power, but now, he gestured toward a group of young Korthax working alongside human engineers to install solar power systems. Now they're learning that there are many ways to be strong. Elena nodded. The transformation of the Korthax Empire had been humanity's greatest challenge since the war ended. It wasn't enough to defeat their military. They had to help an entire species learn new ways of thinking. "Dr. Korthek, I have news from Earth. The Human Council has approved the Korthax Republic's application for independent status." The mayor's scales flushed bright blue, the Korthax color for joy. "Independent? You mean?" "In 6 months, human oversight will end. The Korthax Republic will govern itself, though we'll maintain our mutual defense treaty and trade agreements." Dr. Korthek looked around at his transformed city. "Thank you, Ambassador. Your species could have destroyed us, but instead, you taught us how to be better." Similar conversations were happening across what had once been the Korthax Empire. 12 worlds that had been dedicated to war and conquest were now focused on education, trade, and peaceful development. But the real changes were happening on a galactic scale. Admiral Chen, now promoted to Fleet Admiral and head of Human Space Command, stood in the new Galactic Affairs building on Luna. Through the massive windows, she could see ships from dozens of different species docking at the station. Aliens who had come to Earth seeking trade agreements, defense pacts, and cultural exchanges. "Admiral," said Captain Williams, her new aide, "the morning briefing is ready." Chen walked to the main conference room where representatives from the Human Diplomatic Corps were waiting with reports from across the galaxy. "What's the situation?" "With the hegemony of Sec?" Chen asked. "They've completed dismantling their slave camps," reported Ambassador Martinez. "The former slave species are now citizens with full rights. The hegemony is requesting human advisors to help establish democratic institutions." "And the Zalani-Akhtar border dispute?" "Resolved through arbitration yesterday. Both sides accepted our proposed solution. No military action needed." Chen reviewed the reports with satisfaction. In the year since the Korthax War, humanity had become the galaxy's peacekeepers. Not through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that aggression against anyone would bring overwhelming retaliation. "Admiral," Captain Williams said, "we have a priority message from the Outer Rim. The Vanguard species is requesting immediate assistance." Chen frowned. The Vanguard were a peaceful species that had recently made contact with humanity. "What's the problem?" "They're being threatened by something called the Swarm Empire. Apparently, it's a hive mind species that consumes entire worlds." "Military assessment?" "Unknown fleet strength, but they've already destroyed 3 Vanguard colonies. The Vanguard military is no match for them." Chen stood up and walked to the tactical display. The Swarm Empire was on the far edge of known space, thousands of light years from Earth, but that didn't matter. "Signal the fleet. Prepare battle groups Alpha through Delta for long-range deployment." "Admiral, that's 400,000 ships. Are you sure we need that many?" Chen thought about New Kepler, about the 2.3 million people who had died without warning. "Captain, humanity learned something important from the Korthax War. When someone threatens innocent people, you respond with enough force to make sure it never happens again." "Yes, Admiral." But before the fleet could deploy, something unexpected happened. Ships began arriving from across the galaxy. Not human ships, but vessels from dozens of different species. The Korthax Republic sent 50,000 ships. The reformed hegemony of Sek contributed 30,000. The Zalani Confederation, the Akhtar Republic, and dozens of smaller species all sent fleets to join the human task force. Dr. Korthek, now serving as the Korthax Republic's Minister of Defense, contacted Admiral Chen directly. Admiral, the Korthax Republic formally requests permission to join the operation against the Swarm Empire. Dr. Korthek, this isn't your fight. The Vanguard are far from your territory. Admiral, a year ago you taught us that protecting innocent people is everyone's responsibility. We would be honored to serve alongside human forces. Similar messages came from across the galaxy. Species that had once been enemies or strangers were now volunteering to fight alongside humanity against a common threat. The combined fleet that set out for Vanguard space was the largest in galactic history. Over 800,000 ships from 47 different species, all united under human command. Commander Sarah Park, now captain of the rebuilt HMS New Kepler, led the advance force. Beside her flew ships she never could have imagined working with a year ago. Korthax cruisers, Zalani destroyers, and vessels from species humanity had barely met. Captain, her tactical officer reported, we're entering Vanguard space. I'm detecting massive debris fields. Looks like the remains of Vanguard colonies. Any sign of the swarm? Yes, Captain. Large formations, approximately 50,000 ships. They're consuming the wreckage. Park studied her tactical display. The swarm ships were unlike anything she had seen before. Organic-looking. Vessels that seemed to grow rather than being built. Signal the fleet. Begin attack formation Omega. What followed was the most one-sided battle in galactic history. The Swarm Empire, which had terrorized the Outer Rim for centuries, was completely unprepared for the coordinated assault of the United Galactic Fleet. Human tactics, Korthax firepower, Zalani speed, and the combined knowledge of dozens of species overwhelmed the swarm completely. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the Swarm Empire had ceased to exist. But the most important moment came after the battle, when representatives from all the allied species gathered on HMS Terra. Today, Admiral Chen announced to the assembled delegates, we proved something important. When free species work together, no force in the galaxy can stand against us. The Vanguard ambassador, a tall being with silver skin and large eyes, stepped forward. Admiral Chen, on behalf of my people, I thank you. But I must ask, what do you want in return? Chen smiled. Nothing. We don't fight for profit or territory. We fight to protect the right of all species to live in peace. Dr. Korthek translated for some of the other delegates, and Chen could see the amazement on their faces. Most galactic powers expected payment for military assistance. However, Chen continued, we would like to propose something, a permanent alliance of free species dedicated to protecting each other and preventing aggression anywhere in the galaxy. The response was immediate and unanimous. Within hours, the Galactic Defense Alliance was formed, with Earth as its headquarters, and humanity as its military commanders. 6 months later, Elena Rodriguez stood in the New Kepler Memorial Gardens. The colony had been rebuilt, stronger and more beautiful than before. 2.3 million trees grew in perfect rows, one for each person who had died in the original attack. It's beautiful, said Dr. Korthek, who had come to Earth for the memorial ceremony. They died for nothing, Elena said quietly. The Korthax attacked them just to send a message. But their deaths weren't meaningless, Dr. Korthek replied. They led to something amazing. Because of what happened here, the galaxy is more peaceful than it's been in centuries. Elena nodded, looking at the memorial wall that listed every name. Sarah Chen, teacher, Michael Rodriguez, farmer, Lisa Park, doctor, ordinary people who had just wanted to build new lives among the stars. You know what the strangest thing is? Elena said. If the Korthax had just asked, we probably would have shared this sector of space with them. We could have been neighbors instead of enemies. My people were too proud to ask, Dr. Korthek said sadly. We thought strength meant taking what we wanted. And now? Now we know that true strength means protecting what others have built. That evening, Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the orbital defense platform, protecting New Kepler. The planet below was bustling with activity. New colonists arriving, children playing in rebuilt cities, farms stretching to the horizon. "Admiral," Captain Williams said, joining her at the window, "the patrol reports are in. All human colonies. Report secure. No threats detected anywhere in our space. Good. What about our allies?"